I've always blended commentary, poetry and comedy. Love how comedy, I can kind of not go too deep and find something that's fun. And poetry that just kind of adds a little bit of sparkle to interesting ideas, and it's a little strange. It's a little witchy. And in writing my mum's book, that was fun. Part of it was a little bit channeled, like paraphrased, and trying to catch the spirit of her, and the kind of stuff she would say to catch her as a character, as a real person. And a lot of it she did say as well. It's a kind of a weird blend. And I still talk to her. I channel her by talking to the sky. She still annoys the crap out of me. Then You're Going to Be Okay, which I wrote after, which is almost like a best of collection over a long time. That was where I was kind of trying to find a voice, sort of funny and poetic. And it made me reflect on two of my biggest influences, Michael Leunig and Charles Bukowski. And of course, Alan Watts. That's kind of like a holy trinity of influences, apart from just writing my own crap until that scaffolding fell away, and all of a sudden I just found I was just writing sentences that sounded like me. No one else was writing that crap. I feel like I've been feeling a bit wobbly recently, 80% into the new book, and I'm going, who am I? What is my voice? What should I be writing? But I started to think, maybe like I'm the most uninteresting person in the world, yet when I wrote about mum, I'm almost like a portrait artist when it comes to my writing. I'm really good at portraying and bringing a spirit to life that's not me, in mum's book. Because she was there already. She was the blueprint of herself. But I'm not an interesting person. I don't get into adventures. I don't travel around and look at interesting places and meet crazy people and all that sort of stuff. It's just how I view the world, a really mundane, boring world, which is my boringness. And I've always felt as a kid that you find magic at the bottom of boringness. You just sit with being bored for long enough and something happens. So I've always felt like that. So there's that. You can have all the tools, but it just doesn't work. Like you're 99% of the way there, and you just need that 1% to click. On Michael Leunig and Charles Bukowski, I noticed Charles Bukowski's novels, I don't think they're as good as his poetry. It's the same person, but almost like one's just way better. And Michael Leunig's cartoons are incredible, but when he wrote articles, I remember thinking, is this the same person? And sometimes it's just about finding that little outlet for an entire voice to let the 99% of it through. That 1% little change, and it just all comes through. It's just like you've got it all, but just finding the right place and format for your own ideas and thoughts, and then it all works. It's amazing. Like writing Darby Love, Mum's book. I had all these good ideas. I knew it. I just didn't know why they weren't working or they weren't resonating. And then I've worked out a way. And I'm slowly working out a way to do it with my own voice, with You're Going to Be Okay and the new book. Because I am a boring person, and I don't do much these days. The last 5 years I've just worked really hard at writing and doing nothing except going to the supermarket. It's hard to find things to write about, but I've always thought the more limited your palette, the more constraints you have, the more interesting and more beautiful it can get. Like when three-piece bands turned up and Nirvana popularized it, they didn't have the gigantic 4-piece, 5-piece keyboards, all that sort of crap, and it was stripped down and it sounded incredible. And it's when you can do a lot with a little, that's when it gets incredible. And it's a higher difficulty level when you've got almost nothing to work with, but when it works, it's so good. So yeah, maybe my boring supermarket trips I've got something to work with. It's trying to make a lot out of a little. I've got all these old memories of train tracks, and I can self-mythologize about my 20s and my 30s. I feel like I'm at the point where I can do a lot with a little. And I probably couldn't 10, 20, 30 years ago. Mum had become a character into her 50s. She was sort of heading that way. Bukowski was a character through just being a drunk. I almost feel like if you drink enough, you're going to get yourself into adventures, which is what he kind of said. You do weird, interesting stuff, which is kind of, I did it as well through my 30s, 40s. Sometimes I get pretty pissy, but not as often. But I didn't want to make being a drunk my identity. It's been done. It's been done. And that's kind of in the vein of Hemingway and then Hunter S. Thompson. I'm just going to take lots of drugs and go crazy and weird and wild. But who are you beneath that? Who are you beneath sexuality and the way you look and where you're from? I feel like I'm the most plainest, boring dude to be writing books or words or being heard or listened to or whatever. And it's a perspective. I keep going back. I'm not interesting, but the way I see the world is interesting. Sometimes, not all the time. Mostly I see it through sleepwalking, dead eyes. But sometimes I can periscope above myself and see things in a, what was that? That's weird. And I have stupid thoughts, and I love that. Where do you write from when you don't have an identity to easily grasp at? And I've been digging into myself while I'm writing this third book, because I'm going, I can't keep retreading more stuff I've written in You're Going to Be Okay. I can't just introduce Mum into the book I'm writing. I could almost ventriloquist or seance some kind of interesting, a blend of a few people who I've known in my life to life and call them a person. There are two people who I know who I think I would love to bring to life or blend them into one person at some point. When I hung around them, I always knew something dangerous was going to happen, and hanging around them in my 20s and 30s, probably nearly died a couple of times, but it didn't matter at the time because we were really drunk or on other stuff. It didn't matter, but it was really adventurous, like rooftopping in the city, throwing guitars through windows. Just stupid, dumb stuff, laughing like I'd never laughed before. It was kind of it was kind of semi-destructive, but there was the laughter that could reach beyond the world that came from that destruction. It was like a controlled destruction. It didn't hurt anyone. It didn't. We had to clean up our own pieces, but it was a destruction that was I laughed like never before. I remember reading something about the actor who played Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini, and there's something about every time something went wrong or something crashed, he loved it and he wanted it to keep going. He loved the chaos, and that's part of me is deeply attracted to that chaos and destruction. And going into it and coming out the other side intact, but with laughter that's not from this world. And I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, that was just a character that I would love to bring to life. But yeah, I'm really questioning, like, I'm the most boring person in the world. How much do I make this autobiographical? I've kind of reinvented the wheel with You're Going to Be Okay. It's a fair bit of retreading from that, but trying to find something new and trying to catch myself in the moments where I've gone, that's weird. Like the weird, I do weird things, and I think they're perfectly normal, then later I go, oh, that's pretty weird, Darby. Why did you do that? And then write it into something stupid. But yeah, maybe my mission in life and writing more books is to do a mum, where she kind of started to become a character into her 50s. And I'm 50 now, and so there's no escape. But at the same time, not deliberately doing it. I think that it's just going to naturally happen, whether I like it or not. But yeah, I always find that the poets who try to write about the bits of their life that they find interesting that are to do with identity are some of the most boring writing, even though it's highly praised, but it's fashionable. Bukowski talked about his childhood trauma, but wasn't the centre. It was in Ham on Rye, I guess, but it wasn't the be all and end all of most writers who, when they've run out of that, what else have they got? And I feel like I decided to skip my hard childhood. I've never talked about it because everyone else is doing it. I decided to skip being a total pisshead for 20 years because it's been done, and the weird adventures from that. I've skipped the travel and the bits and pieces and things I've seen. And what am I left with? I'm left with nothing. I'm left with nothing. And I'm left with walking to the supermarket. I'm left with making things for Instagram. But I think Nick Pizzolatto, who wrote True Detective, said it best. Like, trends and fashions kind of come and go. Someone writes a great Western, and all of a sudden there's 10 million Western shows on TV. And he said something like, it's not about, the latest immigration story or the latest trauma story. It's whether it's good or not. It doesn't matter about the genre or the fashion. Just write something good. That's it. Doesn't matter. And if it just happens to be in a particular genre or identity, that means shit. It's just being good. That's it. Be good. I love how brutal. And I've heard other people say it too. Just be good. And people will think it's because it's the genre, and often sometimes it is a little bit, especially when you see institutions reward a particular genre rather than on its actual quality. You see that a lot. But a true audience will sniff it out 20 years from now when the institution's gone that backed it. The heart will sniff it out, what is good. And I'm watching True Detective at the moment, rewatching it, the first season, and just bathing in its atmosphere. I love its atmosphere so much. And that's what I'm trying to bring to this new book. Less punchlines, more atmosphere. And You're Going to Be Okay was full of little kind of hits, little punchlines that only rarely sort of evoked something a little bit like a room to sit in, but most of it was just a door. Now I'm trying to make something to sit in, and I love that about True Detective. There's some bits of dialogue that probably in each episode there's probably 30 seconds of dialogue that you go, oh, that's incredible, and other stuff happens and I'm still bathing in that 30 seconds of greatness. And it doesn't matter because there's this brooding atmosphere and Louisiana crap and beautiful, dark, humming, prowling music, and I feel the whole atmosphere just on 30 seconds. So part of me is like, write those beautiful little bits, but not every single page, and just keep going with it.